Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Index Engines Insights Connect, where we connect with our partner community on everything cyber resiliency. So today I've got with me Bill Basinas. Bill is from our partner Infinidat. And Bill, why don't you take a little bit of time here and introduce yourself?
Hey Rob, how are you? Great to be here with you again today.
Uh,
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'm the senior director of product marketing for Infinidat, and looking forward to having another chat with you about all the great things that we do together and bringing together a very comprehensive cyber strategy for primary data. So, looking forward to diving into it.
Excellent. Thanks. I forgot at the top of the hour there to introduce myself. So yeah, I'm Rob Mossi. I'm really happy to have Bill with me today to to talk a little bit about our joint value prop together. And I think if we really boil it down, Bill, our joint value proposition really addresses two things. It addresses both cybersecurity and it addresses cyber resiliency as well. And I think that's pretty much the main one, but in a proactive manner. And I think that's really the key on taking this very proactive approach with direct storage and kind of CyberSense behind the scenes in the Infinisafe product line. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Infinisafe and that joint value prop between the storage and the detection capabilities of CyberSense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a comprehensive set of things that don't have to be complicated, right? I mean, we have a tendency in today's age to have so many different tools to get a specific result. And we focused on, working with the technologies that we can bring to bear, along with what we can leverage from index engines with the CyberSense technology in our solution that make up our Infinisafe technologies. So, at the core level of that, it's how you protect the data, immutability, right? You hear it all over the place. And the fact that, you have to start with an immutable copy, an unchangeable copy of the data. And we go up, I think, a little above and beyond what some of the others do there because we guarantee immutability. We have no back doors to our immutability, and we guarantee it. We see that, if you have the ability to have a support department or somebody like that go in and delete or modify or change it from immutable to a read-write copy of a snapshot, that's a hole, right? So immutable should be
Right.
immutable. We mean that, we add a lot of other core functions in our capabilities and how we address the problem. But ultimately, I think, like you said, Rob, what it really comes down to is the ability to assure the state of your data and that you have a process that's easy to implement and allows you to recover at the click of a button, right?
Right.
It shouldn't be a whirlwind of activity just to figure out what data you need to recover and what the state of that data is.
Yeah, and you mentioned state because that's where, from an Infinisafe perspective and CyberSense perspective, that's where we really kind of bake into the product is that data integrity aspect. And to be able to understand exactly where your good copies reside and where your good data resides so that it is at that fingertip click, being able to recover quickly and having this proactivity behind the scenes. Bill, let's talk a little bit about some of the other features that are rolled into Infinisafe as well. There's other features. You mentioned immutability. Let's talk a little bit about air gapping because that is critical for a cybersecurity and a cyber resiliency environment, especially when data integrity is on the line.
Absolutely. And I think that true immutability is actually one part of logical air gapping, right? Because you have no way of being able to modify the solution, or modify the data. But it goes beyond that.
Right.
It goes beyond that, and being able to use that and use those immutable copies in an effective way, and or move those copies somewhere else and still maintain that immutability, right? That security around the data itself until you validate it, right? Through validation. And we do that both within the box and outside the box by, being able to leverage our powerful replication technologies and give you remote air gapping, as well. So, we look at that. We extend that further by allowing you to easily spin up and down in an automated or orchestrated fashion what we call a fenced forensic environment, right? That clean room, that private area where you can easily access those immutable copies of the data, and then lo and behold, right, leverage Infinisafe cyber detection powered by CyberSense and scan that data and really understand where the state of that data is, whether it's clean or whether it's dirty. And if it's dirty, the insights that these tools provide are very robust, and we know exactly where the problem exists, down to the host, the file, and so on. So it gives people a very insightful and easy method to know the state of their data. And by being, as we mentioned, proactive about it, they don't have to worry about scrambling should the unfortunate thing happen.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think from a time perspective, you bring tremendous value to cyber resiliency, because we're eliminating some of the fumbling around. You're eliminating some of the insecurities, if you will, of what you are recovering by having that kind of clean room behind the scenes, by being able to examine the data, away from production before bringing it in. And then this is where your value prop really comes into play, is the speed of recovery once you've identified that good data, the last known good.
Yeah, it is, right. And again, it's it's aligning. It's all about alignment, and it's all about creating that known and repeatable process. And again, it doesn't have to be difficult. We made it very easy. And the ability to recover when you know the state of your data, and you can look and you can see the state of that database, right? That database volume or the database file itself, or the virtual machine image or the data within a virtual machine image that's been compromised or not compromised. And you can see that yesterday it was clean, today it's dirty. You can literally, from our console, go back and click on that snapshot and recover that snapshot instantaneously. And we guarantee that. It's literally as fast as the click of a mouse. It takes seconds to navigate to that snapshot. It takes a click of a mouse, and the data is back.
All right. So before we flip over to the next topic, let me see if I can summarize this. So we're talking cyber resilience, kind of built in an integrated solution within the Infinidat, storage portfolio, right? So this is where Infinisafe sits, and this is unlike some of the other solutions that are actually out on the market as well. So it builds directly into your storage infrastructure. It provides both detection and recovery capabilities within your existing Infinidat environment, and it does all this really without any additional infrastructure or complex integrations. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a pretty fair statement, right? The only, besides what we provide in the box, and those core technologies are all included with InfuseOS that which run across all our systems. It's really a matter of just creating, the engine that drives the cyber detection pieces, that does the actual scanning. It's really that simple. It's not a very complex and difficult or technically challenging environment to have to try to stand up.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to switch gears now as promised, and I want to switch over to kind of the security side of the house. Let's talk a little bit about how Infinisafe benefits a security team, how they could leverage information for either an EDR or a SIEM. Talk to me a little bit about that, how you can take the information that's being gathered and share it with security teams who obviously have different priorities.
They do, and they already manage pretty large and complex infrastructures, right? To try to handle that part of the prevention element, right? But unfortunately, not all prevention works, and that's why the solution is so elegant. We're that last line of defense that ultimately gets us there. But we've taken an approach that looks beyond kind of our own stack of information, because so many people and so many vendors today, do this within their own ecosystems and don't integrate and provide the ability to extend beyond their own four walls, if you will, right? Kind of stovepipe. With one of the latest innovations that we put together with Infinisafe is Infinisafe, what we call ACP, Automated Cyber Protection. And what that really does is it allows us to integrate out into a SIEM or a SOAR type of an environment and be able to leverage what they're looking at within that entire security ecosystem and be able to trigger events associated to data protection on the storage. So example, they're running a Q radar or a Microsoft Sentinel or a Splunk or something like that, and some kind of an alert comes up and they say, boy, something is kind of going on out here. Let me be proactive and maybe take an extra copy of immutable copy of the data. They can literally send a trigger to Infinisafe ACP, and we'll then go out and snap the volumes that are associated to their protection strategy. It costs us nothing. There's no overhead to it. There's no storage overhead to it. There's no performance overhead to it. And they have a copy of the data. And then lo and behold, we orchestrate the methodology to provide that to the scanning engine so they can immediately not have to worry about stepping through a multi-step complex process to start data validation. Right.
So let me back this up let me back this up that's really important. And I want to back it up just a second, because I think what we're missing from this part of the conversation is really the indexing, the action that is happening behind the scenes to the data itself, the examination of the data, the possible ransomware detection at a 99.99% rate of accuracy that an SLA that we offer. That is built into Infinisafe, and I think that's kind of the joint value prop here on the security side. So we're looking at that data, we're identifying some patterns of behavior, and then those say there's a threshold, whether it's through Splunk, whether it's through the Microsoft applications as well, that ultimately triggers your the immutable snapshot, right? So it's the examination of the data, the continuous examination of the data, the thresholds that were possibly being met that ultimately create those trigger points.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And I think that's all very valid. And what CyberSense brings to the table is that underlying technology and that data validation piece is far beyond. Yep. It's far beyond what anybody else does, right? I mean, there's so much noise in the industry as to how people approach that particular part of the problem and identifying what's going on with the data and the state of the data. Those 200 different data points and all the machine learning and AI automation and training that's being done in your labs is critical to being able to identify that data at that sub-file level. It's way beyond those basic entropy scores and, am I searching for encryption at a high level and those types of things. And you can actually look inside the file and you can index all those different elements accurately. You can be pretty well assured that if the data's clean, says it's clean, right? And even in cases where, so many different elements don't really understand the signatures associated with ransomware and malware types of environments, and they depend on, those being present or some kind of a reference point to be able to identify them. Where with CyberSense, right, and Infinisafe cyber detection ultimately picks those up even if they're not known, right? Because it understands what those patternistic, those patterns look like over time and can apply those every time it looks at the data.
Excellent. So from a security perspective, what are some of the key features that are a critical part of Infinisafe cyber detection?
So when we've talked about a few, we talked about a few of them already. But I think if you were to really kind of overarch this thing, and we talk about that proactive capability and integration into the security environment to broaden the understanding of where threats come from. We need to ultimately reduce the threat window, right?
Yeah.
And we all know that people periodically protect data, and that includes snapshots and immutable snapshots. But you have to bring some dynamic elements to it, right? And the security portion of this thing is when we kind of really thought about Infinisafe ACP, we were thinking about how do we reduce that threat window and how do we make the protection of the data more dynamic, right? And fill those gaps. And because we as storage don't have that larger purview into what's going on into the rest of the security environment, we have to be willing to listen to what the security environment is seeing and being able to act on that dynamically, right, and automatically. And that's powerful because we now don't have to wait for the security admin guy, if he even knows who the storage admin guy is, to call him up and say, hey, something's going on, snapshot your data, right? It can just happen. I like to call it at the speed of compute. So we don't have to fumble around and waste time because, we know that minutes can be millions, right? As far as what that means from a company risk perspective, right? That's really what we're trying to help do collectively here in our solutions is mitigate risk.
That's great. So, all right, let me try and encapsulate this like we did to the section earlier. So, from a security perspective, this is all about maintaining control, especially when a cyber attack hits. And again, going back to that proactive stance, we want to maintain control. And I think Infinisafe cyber detection it helps you identify the clean, the uncorrupted data. So it brings you back to a recovery point. And this is, I think, the important part for both our customers. It gives you that confidence that your data is clean. And we do that through the 4 nines SLA that, for detection of ransomware behavior. We do it through that. You do it through the Infinisafe integration that we have and the immutable snapshots. But for the recovery process, we help minimize downtime. That's number one. And we enable recovery with certainty. And I think that's really kind of the key value prop that we're trying to drive home between the two of us here is how certain you are when an attack takes place, that your data is clean and that you have the ability to recover.
Absolutely, right? The leverage comes back to you.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah,
the leverage comes back to you.
And there is that, what moment of when you have that panic, right? And I think we're removing that panic button.
Well, just think about it. When we talk about proactiveness, some of the analysts that I know both you and I talk to very clearly state that when an attack happens, companies spend 3 to 4 weeks just trying to figure out what data is affected. And that's a long time.
Yeah.
And if you walk into that room and you've scanned those snapshots and you know exactly what's affected and what hasn't, and you know exactly what that previous copy of the data is that's good, boy oh boy, you've done a lot to maintain leverage over the people who are trying to extort you.
Agreed. So Bill, can I want to try and switch gears a little bit. We have a few, some good customers together. Any examples that kind of align to what we're talking about? You don't need to name names here, but if there's an example of of a customer success around this joint value prop, I'd love to just get a little synopsis here.
Yeah, the interesting part is fortunately we haven't had too many people who have had too many problems, right? And the one thing that I think we can both agree on is in this section of technology, when people have a problem, they don't really like to admit a lot about what's going on.
Got that right.
But I can certainly tell you, without a doubt, that the customer base that would continually talk to about this and who are starting to, implementing these kinds of technologies and taking to heart what we do, right? Understand that it reduces their risk dramatically. And this is across the board. We're talking about utilities, right? Both foreign and foreign utility companies and domestic utility companies. We're talking about financial services companies. We're talking about manufacturing and shipping companies, right? I mean, what I think what's important to understand is that this problem, state, local government, all those different elements,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's immune to what goes on here. And they have to understand that this is beyond what they've thought about in the past from a traditional DR perspective. This is a whole different ball of beans, right? That they're ultimately dealing with, and that their strategy has to shift, right? When they understand that message, light bulbs go off, right? Because they understand now the approach has to be different. It's not traditional disaster recovery, that the data integrity piece is utmostly important. And that when you know the state of your data and you have the ability to point and click and recover, then they, have a solution that is going to dramatically increase their capability should they have that type of a situation, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to give you some specific examples, but where we try to let our customers deal with that and support them as best we can. But again, we haven't really had significant incidents where it's been a huge problem, right? To knock on wood today.
Great. All right, so let's do a quick summary here. There's a couple aspects I think we can boil this all down to, and one is business impact, right? So between Infinisafe, cyber detection, and CyberSense kind of being on that back end, we're minimizing downtime. We're reducing the financial burden that is associated with a recovery. We're helping, even in some cases, maintain compliance, right? There's due diligence that needs to be done in order to recover quickly and with minimal downtime, and there's regulations behind all that impose fines. So again, it comes down to cost, and I think really just from a proactive perspective, we're helping with lowering the overall cost of protection across the board as well, by being able to have those last known goods and those solid recovery points for rapid recovery. And then number two, I think it just comes from a technical excellence perspective. Between the enterprise scale that Infinidat is designed for, with the industry-leading SLA that we promise, not 4.9's SLA that we promise for our customers for detection of ransomware, I think the combination there is to use the analogy, the Reese's peanut butter cup, right? We use that. we love that one.
My favorite, right? So yeah,
two great tastes that taste great together, right?
Yeah, I agree, and that's why we have all that great technology built in Infinisafe, right? But when we really talk about it, we like to talk about it as that next generation of data protection and recovery.
Right.
And we really, and our tagline around that is that it is fully cyber focused, right? This whole discussion that we've had is around how we protect, validate and recover the data based on a cyber event. It's 100% cyber focused. It's apart from what traditional methodologies typically apply to the data recovery problem. So
and you're bringing me to my third point here, which is the operational transformation, right? This is exactly what we're going for. We're trying to bridge the gap, to streamline response, right? To be proactive, and that's exactly what you were just saying, Bill. So you beat me to it.
Oh, but again, it's I don't want to be repetitive here, but that's what it all boils down to, right? And it's again, it's not like traditional DR. It's about the new strategy that comes associated with the vulnerabilities associated with cyber incidents and cyber attacks. We have to think about it differently. business moves much faster today than it did 10, 15 years ago when all we talked about was traditional DR strategies, right? And the smoking hole of the data center. A smoking hole today is a cyber event, and these
Right.
guys aren't dwelling around anymore. They have AI tools, they built AI infrastructures. They know where the threats, where those holes are, where those gaps are. They know how to infiltrate, and they're in and out. Right? We're talking dwell times that can be as short as hours, not days, weeks, or months like we used to talk about.
Yeah,
So
that's what it used to be, and it's no longer.
no, not at all. And so that makes it that much more important to be proactive in how you manage the environment.
Yeah. Well, Bill, this has been outstanding. Always learning something new when we talk, and I hope that for those listening, that you all learned something as well. If you're interested in Infinidat, they can be found at infinidat.com. Any some more information there, and please feel free to also check out indexengines.com if you have the need for any more information on CyberSense. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this Insights Connect, again, where we touch base with our partner community to help you learn some more. Thank you very much and have a great one.